next topic, Jamie, comes the way of the demonizing that has been Xbox Game Pass. And this isn't just because of the price increase. Xbox Game Pass continues to be demonized by members of the community, even the gaming journalistic community. So what do I mean by that? Well, a couple of things. I have a statement. Now, the statement that I'm going to read is not going to come with a name. The last thing that Mrs. Boom and I want to promote is bullying. And if I find out that you're bullying a said person or group of people, we will block you and we will ban you from the channel. We do not stand for it. As you know, I'm a retired New York City police officer that worked in the youth movement. I worked in schools. I understand what bullying is, and it's disgusting. And if there's anything that pisses me off to no end, it's bullying. And now it's so easy to do because of social media and electronics, where you can just destroy someone's life with a tweet. We will not stand for it. So that's why this particular person has a very pointed opinion about Game Pass. I think it's incorrect, but it's an opinion, and they're entitled to it. So no name here, but I want to read verbatim. Now, before I get to that particular tweet, J-Rock, a good friend of this community, I would even dare say damn great friend of this community, the Gremlin master himself, put out a tweet which I thought was genius, where simply asking, because again, the running narrative has been, I'm quitting Game Pass, Boom, because you know what? $19 a month is just too much for my blood. Okay, well, he asked a question, and go where? Like I said in the opening, where are you going if you're quitting Game Pass? You're going to PlayStation there, fellas? Because they're charging $159.99 plus tax for their service that does not deliver day and date. And that's the maximum service. You know what's even more egregious about that service? The fact that A, doesn't get MLB The Show each and every year, but Game Pass does, which is ridiculous. Still doesn't have Gran Turismo 7. Still not in the service. Their only driving game is still only pay for. Like, are you kidding me, PlayStation? And people are defending that shit? Come on now. Let's be for real. And of course, Nintendo, now I pay $60 a year for it, which I think is fair. And I get a bunch of really old games. And I actually play those old games. I bought all the wireless controllers, the N64, the NES, the Super NES. I bought it all. I even have a GameCube wireless controller that I use with the Switch to play Smash or Double Dash. And I like all of those old games. But I'm also an old man. But here is the gist of this hatred for Xbox Game Pass. And said person says this: Game Pass has irreversibly damaged the industry by altering customer behavior to what is mentally treated like not having to, quote unquote, pay for games. The Spotify effect, they say. It has eroded value perception of games, pushed towards play length as value, and destroyed ownership, all for nothing. Now, it's one take with many. I could sit here, and I have them pulled, but we only have so much time in a show that I could read you where the demonizing or the demonization of Xbox Game Pass continues. Now, where your value as a consumer lies is going to be different from mine. I'm a retired guy that has a pension that I worked super hard for, but we are in an era where everything consistently goes up except that pension. I made it. It is what it is. I get a COLA increasement, which is cost of living adjustment once every couple of years, and it's pennies. So it's not really going up that much. So I run a household. I do really good. I'm not doing like rich well, but I do okay. No complaints here. But Game Pass, for me, and this is just putting myself in front of the spotlight, allows for me to play all of these games, new games this week, like Path of the Goddess is one of them. You have, I talked about it yesterday. Oh my goodness, what's the other one that's coming out?
Flintlock.
Thank you. Why did I have a brain for it? Live on the air. Flintlock, Siege of Dawn. That's another one. Those are two bangers, both of them, back to back. Now, are you going to play them? I don't know. I know that I'm going to play them, right? So that's value for me. What it does for me, Jamie, is allow for me to buy PlayStation 5 games when they release single player story driven games or exclusives. Same thing for Nintendo. And I buy everything for Nintendo. I mean, like everything for Nintendo because I'm a Nintendo kid. I've been for years. I make no apologies for it. But what shocks me, Jamie, is that these opinions are not just the gaming community. These opinions are the journalistic gaming community, where, of course, Xbox negativity sells. And again, I said this before, Jamie, and I will stand on this and die on this hill. I will never advocate for price increases on anything. But I understand as a consumer that sometimes things are going to go up. Game Pass had gone up one time. I think that was about a year ago, where it went to $16.99. Now, I'm going to be honest with you folks. I don't think I've paid full price for Game Pass since inception, because I always went to CD Keys or Aniba, or I got, codes from here, there, and everywhere. And I stack because I'm a frugal gamer when it comes to that, as you should be as well. Jamie, let's talk about this particular comment, and more importantly, of how the gaming media specifically continues to demonize Xbox Game Pass, where clearly it is the best value in gaming.
Okay, well, this is one I can definitely go off on. Gaming's weird because gaming is a luxury, right? It's not a cheap hobby. It's an expensive hobby at the end of the day, and it's the only hobby on earth for media where people will advocate for price raising, the raising of prices, right? Price increases, right? I can scroll down my feed and I'll see someone from the media say, you know what? Games should be $80, maybe 90, because of how much we were paying in the 90s, and it's weird to me. It's weird, and that person mentioned Spotify, how Spotify has changed how people think about prices. Like, Spotify didn't change people's purchase habits of music. Do you know what did? LimeWire. People haven't been buying music for 20 years. They just haven't, right? That's why Apple came along with iTunes and changed the pricing model of the entire music industry. And then over time, books basically went to digital. And then movies and TV, streaming apps. So, like, people just want to be locked into this idea where gaming was going to be the same as it always was. Games were going to be sold the way they were back in the 90s, and that's it. It's 2024. People have to get with the time. Subscription models work, and people like to act like Game Pass is this brand new thing. Game Pass has been around for 7 years. There's no sign of it going away. They've added more games to the service than ever before. And yes, they increased the price, right? And I think them increasing the price was a bad move. But I'm a realist, right? PlayStation raised the price of their service last year. People didn't act like the world was ending. They don't get day and date. And I get the email yesterday off Microsoft saying, hey, in September, Game Pass is going up to $14.99. And this is where this is my thought on subscription models. I look at the value I get from a service. Do I use the service enough to justify the price? Like Disney Plus. I'm subscribed to Disney Plus, and I can't see myself ever not being subscribed. I subscribe because all the Fox back catalogs on there in the UK. So to me, I get my money's worth. I use it every single day. So this year, it's going to go up to £80 a year. And you know what? I don't like the fact it's going to go up in price, but I'm still going to subscribe because I use the service. Game Pass, I use every single day. And like, they shouldn't have raised the price. But again, we have to realize that things change. We have to deal with it. Whining on Twitter doesn't get anything done. So like, this was an inevitability. It was going to happen. And like, it hasn't changed people's purchasing habits. I buy more games now because I'm subscribed to Game Pass. I buy games that are leaving the service because you get discounts, and then I buy more games that don't even launch in the service because I have the available cash. I think that Game Pass is just a new revenue stream, and some journalists just can't wrap their mind around it. They want to be stuck in the 90s where they go into a store and getting a physical disc, and they get to keep that disc. I have bad news for people, right? Just because you own a disc doesn't mean you own the game. right? It's a license key at the end of the day. At any point in time, Microsoft, PlayStation, Nintendo, Steam, whatever, they can flip whatever switch and make whatever game you're playing stop working. So that's that sorted. And like Game Pass has always had this like forced negativity against it. PlayStation Plus exists. They have some third-party day and date games. Nobody acts like it's the end of the world. Yet I've seen people freak out that Flintlock Siege of Dawn's launching day one in Game Pass, it's going to lose value. I just don't understand gamers. Gamers have this weird way of thinking where other like fan bases of other forms of media don't think this way. I don't see movie fans hating on Netflix and Amazon Prime because it's a good deal, but you have gamers whining on Twitter thinking, damn, I have access to hundreds of games plus discounts for X amount a month. It's stupid. It's getting to a point where like we see these tweets and they obviously forced. And they did change the way Game Pass works with the whole, day and date games only being in Ultimate. It's like the way Microsoft does these things, Microsoft always goes off numbers. How many people's using what service and what tier? Like the amount of people that I know that subscribe to Game Pass is staggering. But none of them subscribe to the base version of Game Pass. They all subscribe to Ultimate. So Microsoft probably looked at, well, we may as well just move the day-and-day games just to Ultimate because that's where most of the players are, and they'll get more money out of it. But like when it comes to the whole purchasing habits thing, I just don't think it's changing people's minds. Do we see people every single day say, yeah, I hope it launches in Game Pass? Yes, but a few people on Twitter doesn't equate to literally millions of people. That doesn't make any sense at all. And you have to think that like most gamers, and that what this person was probably talking about, most gamers buy a console for 1 or 2 games a year, right? So like Microsoft getting their subscription fee, they are getting more money off the customer than we would be buying 2 games a year. So like the average Joe in the US buys what Madden, right? And that's maybe it. Well, you have Microsoft now getting basically all of the money of their subscription, and that person that was subscribing to their service, they're going to be playing different kinds of games because the barrier to entry is lower. So people aren't buying less games. People are playing more games. And as we've seen what Sony's going towards, Nintendo's mentioned in the past, a lot of these companies are going off user numbers, not the amount of people purchasing games, because most of these services are funded by microtransactions. Look at the live service games in Game Pass, right? 90% of the games in Game Pass are single player. But the big games, such as Halo, Forza, Gears, and Call of Duty is going to be in there, have microtransactions. Like every time I hop on Warzone Resurgence, everyone's running around as Homelander, right? A £20 skin or something like that. And it's like
it's up there. It's expensive, dude.
Yeah, it's pricey, right? But that's probably like millions of people that are spending these like ridiculous microtransactions. And like Microsoft, they're going to be making money that way off these consumers. Like it's not changing people's purchasing habits. It's the purchasing habits are evolving over time, right? We aren't all going to be playing these games physically forever that you buy at a store and you keep forever. That's just not what's going to happen, right? I'm sure people would love to be stuck in the 90s and play games that way, but we just don't have a time machine, right? So like when I see these comments by these people, it's a bit ignorant. It's a bit ignorant because I don't see people talk about subscription models for other companies and other forms of media. Because I guarantee you that person that said that, they subscribe to Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Spotify Premium, YouTube Premium, all this stuff. And they don't blink an eye. Like I know people that subscribe to like literally like 5 to 6 like subscription services.
I do. I tell you right now, I'm subscribed to at least half a dozen, maybe more.
Yeah, and that's normal now. That's perfectly normal. But there's some people, they just can't wrap the little mind around it that people are just going to play games this way. And that's perfectly fine. But it's just like this weird teething issue because, again, 7 years in, people still act like Game Pass is new. And every single day, Game Pass is destroying the industry, even though we've heard time and time again that developers on the indie side have had more people purchase their game, more people play their game because they're in Game Pass. So, like, no, people's purchasing habits haven't changed. It's just that the purchasing habit in general, the way of people playing games has changed.
Yeah, 100%. But you know what? Also, that I saw a lot of people in the chat talking about free to play games have taken over the gaming world. Now, granted, a lot of people here are old school, so we have consoles. We don't play like I don't play normally a lot of free to play games. The one on your screen has me hooked. Like honestly, it's one of my favorite games of the year. Every second I have to game, I'm playing The Last Descendant. It is a great story. Is it the greatest story told? No, it is not. But I love the characters. I love the way multiplayer works because it's not invasive. Meaning that if I'm running around the world and I see three people, you hear shooting, which they're really good with the sound. Sound on this is really good, and you hear it in the distance. You go running towards it, and it could be one, two, three people. They're in a mission. They're grouped together. The minute you take a shot, you are part of that group, and you reap the rewards. Now, sometimes you go, they just started, and you're doing the whole mission. And other times where they're fighting the last boss, they're fighting a particular side, like sub boss, and you get in there and you help, you get the rewards. It's amazing. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, Umbra, look, this is an interesting one because, of course, the eye of the beholder when it comes to value isn't indeed, well, the beholder. But I think that there is something to be said, at least in the last year or so, specifically last week, where there were articles written by certain journalists where people like, I'm quitting Game Pass, boom, okay, fine, quit away. What can I tell you? If you don't think it's valuable, I'm not going to fight you on it. I find it valuable because I play a lot of the stuff in there. And there are games that I actually do buy. Like if a game is going to leave the service that I really like, I buy it. They give you notice, hey, game A is leaving. Oh, snap. I got to buy that game. And you get it at 10% discount. Who's a winner? I am. But let's get your hot take on this demonizing of Xbox Game Pass and how it's a very untrue sentiment, but people keep running with it.
Yeah, it's very weird. I don't know. I don't really. I think it's low hanging fruit, right? And it seems like the easy thing to do is be like, oh, Game Pass value, blah blah blah. I mean, people brought up the whole free to play model, and I've even seen Jazz talk about that too, and had a discussion with somebody about it who was kind of amped up and ready to fight. It seemed, but yeah, I mean, what they call those black hole games, like for instance, like those bring in tons of money from microtransactions and things like that, and can destroy the value of other games because a lot of people are drawn to those. So how do you rationale that with Game Pass and put that all on Game Pass? I don't really get that. Also, I mean, it's not like for whatever reason it seems like whenever people talk about Game Pass, it's like they have this notion that we never actually buy games too. Like it's only Game Pass or nothing for all of us, and that's just not true. I mean, you've had Sarah Bond herself come out and say like, because of Game Pass, more people actually buy more. Xbox gamers have bought more games as well. So it's not like it's either or you just, or things have been diminished because of that. It's actually benefited because of it. And even if not, let's say if we're talking about that, it goes back to what these developers and publishers are getting by putting their game in it, because it's still this weird misconception about missed sales and things like that. When most every story that we hear about anybody putting their game in there is a success story. So I don't know. I mean, it's a tired conversation. At this point, it's kind of it's silly to continue having. Maybe for them, it's not worth it. You know what I mean? But for millions, clearly it is. And I don't think it destroys anything. There are still games that's out there that we are going to value and put money toward that are outside of Game Pass. You got Star Wars coming up. I mean, it's easy to name that, I'm sure, but you got Black Myth Wukong. You have so many other games that are coming out soon and in September itself that are like we're going to spend outside of this. I think that maybe where they're wrong at is thinking that we just won't pay for any other games. And I don't think that's really the truth. We will pay for something we see that might, be worth our time. And Game Pass just happens to be something that's worth our time too. And time and money. Like the whole thing of the $20 thing. Sure, I didn't like that it went up. I'm not a fan of anything going up in price, like none of us would be, I'm sure. But still, for the price that they're giving it to us and selling it to us, whatever. I mean, it's only $3 more. I'm fine with that. I'm good with that. I think Jamie kind of covered it all, so I don't know if I had too much else to add to it, but
no, I mean, you're making great points. I mean, obviously, Jamie did knock it out of the park, and he did say he was going to vent on it, as he should. I think that it is frustrating to see the consistent downplaying and the finger pointing of a service, and I think ultimately a lot of the rhetoric, Umbra, I think is incited by console war rhetoric, right? Like people looking to be out on socials, pick their team and rah it, whether that be PlayStation, Nintendo, or specifically Xbox. Where it gets a little in the weeds for me is the IGNs and the GameSpots and the Kotakus. These are rag mags, right? They go out of their way to push console war, even though they say they don't, right? They're out there pushing the console war conversation forward, and like this. Whoa, we didn't mean to do that, but hey, it's clicks, right? Oh, snap, right? And you see the articles. Are you quitting Game Pass? Is Game Pass worth it? You know what I'm saying? Question mark. I'm done with Game Pass.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather buy my games. Then you are a boob. I'm going to tell you that right now. Straight up. The biggest boob in the room would be that said person, because good luck 7643 times whatever. Look, last year, right? And again, I'm an evidence-based conversation kind of a guy, Umbra, and I like numbers because you know what? Opinions are just that, but numbers cannot be argued because, well, they're fact. And the fact that last year, Game Pass gave out through their service over $5,000 worth of games if you were to buy each individual game versus your $16.99 a month times 12. Now, granted, yes, that's going up in September, and obviously it makes sense because Call of Duty is going in there, but it's just one of those situations where when you see those stories, Umbra, this is what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And that goes towards the thought of the Xbox tax. But to add to that, Boom, you're right. Look at the value that you get with this, and it's weird, I think, as a consumer, for me to hear somebody try to demonize me saving money. Like, how dare you not go buy more games and spend more money, you fool? Spend more because the industry needs. Like, it sounds so bizarre to actually, when you think about what they're really propositioning and saying needs to happen. Also, why is this all on the squarely on the shoulder of Xbox and Game Pass? Like, there's 30 million subscribers probably right now, 32, I don't know, right? Why is this squarely on Xbox? Clearly there's hundreds of millions of more on just in console gaming alone that are not subscribed. So why is it that this right here is somehow, breaking gaming and altering or ruining gaming and spending? It's just on Xbox. It's not like PC gamers aren't still buying games on Steam or GOG, or I was gonna say GOG, but I'm like, that sounds terrible that way. GOG or Epic or whatever, or God forbid the Windows Store. But or PlayStation gamers aren't still buying what they have to buy. So why is it this Game Pass is such a catastrophe for the industry itself? So that's where I would go to where I said when my brother Pixel Bit pointed out the sensationalism. This right here is sensationalism. This right here is not some Game Pass is not some detriment to the industry. If anything, it has pulled more of us into gaming. It has kept more of us here. And look at the times we're in, man. I mean, it's tough. groceries have gone up. Everything costs more. Our dollar is dropped. Like so this right here is something that's needed. It's a necessity, I think, nowadays, if you want to get into this hobby. And where the hobby used to be about, hey, you have to spend, this right here, it makes it essential for anybody to get into it. I just don't understand why it's so squarely put on the shoulders of Game Pass as ruining something, when there's hundreds of millions or more that are not even touching Game Pass. Well, how is that ruining the industry at all if they're not even doing it? They're not buying games over there. So it's silly. And we still buy games over here. So that's the stupidest argument.